only the bottom part of the bottle caps are what we need, and it's high quality cork. Therefore, with a sharp knife, we will only cut the part that we will use. Once we're done cutting all the cork rings, we have to bore each cork ring as centered as possible. I use a latte for this purpose, but of course you can eyeball it. Try to use a drill smaller than the OT of the blank you are going to use the grips on. In order to speed things up, I use gel super glue to glue the rings together and a blank part close to the idea I've already made for the cork rings to center and glue the cork rings together. I then use the clamp press to squeeze them together. Try to use similar size cork so you end up with a smooth transition when actually sanding the grip. Because there is very little room to play with, I measured to see which end is thicker, with more meat on it, so I have more room to play when making the grips, which in this case will have a 27mm outer diameter. Therefore, I will try to leave the thicker parts outwards. Clamp press and then you're all set in a few minutes. I'll use a BFS blank for this purpose. Once you roughly cut to size the grips, it's time to reamer them out to the blank OD in order to be able to shape them perfectly afterwards. Keep in mind, reamer first, sand second, not the other way around, because you won't end up with a perfectly sanded and centered grip otherwise.
Now this is a perfect fit. All I have to do now is sand it. This is the butt cap I'm going to use for this project, and I will use this trim ring to measure the actual outer diameter of the grip. I will use a latte to actually shape the grip. I have it, therefore I will use it. I will sand the outside of the grip so it's not off center before I straighten the sides. If I don't do this first, I will end up with swirly sides of the grip, which won't make a perfect fit towards the trims and the winding checks. You will see I use different grades of sandpaper until I obtain the desired result.
I will use this real seat. I had it laying around for quite a while now in the workshop. This ornament. I will use this ornament just to make the cork grip that I'm going to shape. I will use this one just to be sure I have the correct measurements towards the real seat. The cork is already glued. I'll have to see if I have enough meat at this end, because I'm not sure yet. I will ream this out so it fits where I want it on my blank, and then shape it as I want it. It's too long, probably I will cut it around here somewhere, but that doesn't make a difference. I use reamers made in my workshop from pieces of blanks that were probably broken in the past. I don't usually buy them because they break a lot. Always keep spinning. Keep spinning the cork so the reamer doesn't go more to one side than the other. and push it downwards towards the thicker end. Always rotate the cork grip, always. Rotate it. Whew, my hands hurt already. Check it, make sure you don't make the hole too big. I'll take the bigger reamer, bigger diametered reamer, and do the same. Okay, I'll cut it somewhere here. It's too long for my taste. Check again. Check again and again and again and again. Bam, 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 bam. Think it's enough. Yes. This is perfect. Straighten it out to see if I have enough meat. You have to straighten the grip first so you can cut it at the end. First sand, then cut. Almost perfect. I will use 140 grit paper now. Yes, this is almost perfect. I will switch between higher grit sandpaper and lower grit till I get the correct shape I want. I can go ahead and glue them on the blank, and voila. Perfect. Perfection! This is the glue I use. Unfortunately, this has been discontinued, therefore I don't know what I'll use next, but hopefully I'll get something similar. I usually use syringes. Be sure that I mix the exact perfect amount every time, so you have to do equal parts of both parts. So let's do it. Okay, I usually do like 2 milliliters of each part, resin and hardener. Just make sure you get it right. Okay, mix well for about 1-2 minutes. I usually try to use smaller cups so I don't waste that much epoxy. Mix well, please. This is very important. I'm trying to build this rod using stuff I had laying around so I get the grip as cheap as possible. As you've seen, I use cork from Prosecco, which I either drank or got from a local wine store, and only used the good cork. Okay, it's mixed well enough. I usually eyeball it, so. Don't be shy with the resin. And try to spread it as well as possible on the blank. As best as you can, okay? Okay. I usually spin the grip while I push it down, so I get as much epoxy or resin as possible to have a perfect, okay. Try to reach the end. I will clean this up. Just clean it as well as possible. If you have any excess glue, I use alcohol, denaturated alcohol. wipe it up, and it's as clean as possible. You won't be able to get it much cleaner than that. Put the winding checks on, don't forget about them for each cork part. Okay. They're not glued, I will glue these afterwards when I glue the real seat on. And I forgot to measure where to put the second cork grip. I use masking tape a lot, either masking tape or a white marker. Measure where I want to put the second one. I usually mask the bottom part so I don't get too much excess epoxy. Do this trick so I don't glue this all the way. Make like a V shaped so I can unglue it afterwards. Okay. Get this off. I don't need this anymore. And smear it with epoxy, resin, as best as you can. Okay. Wipe, and then wipe with denatured alcohol. And wait for the next stage. Made some tape arbors so I can fit the real seat. The glue is hardened already, therefore I will glue the real seat on. Make sure you encase these arbors into glue as good as well as possible. Both ends. Make sure you cover both ends with the glue of all the arbors. I usually make 3 arbors, considering I have little room to play with between the real seat and the blank. I usually use paper tape arbors. Otherwise I use graphite arbors, but it's not the case for this build because I have no room to use the graphite arbors. If you make a casting rod, don't forget to set some glue on the grip as well, so the real seat gets glued to the cork as well. Okay. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I always wipe with alcohol. After wiping the excess off, I put the real seat on the straightest line I can find on the blank. Curve down, so the bottom of the curve should be facing downwards. I will also glue the butt cap on. I won't need to balance this rod out because it's a pretty light rod, a light blank, therefore I don't think I will need to balance it out. So I can glue in the butt cap right from the get-go. Make sure you secure it very well. Wipe again. I don't want any excess glue. For gluing the winding check, I usually use a toothpick with very little epoxy on it. Make sure it's centered. If it's not, try to adjust it with your finger. If you rotate the blank, you will see if it's centered or not. This is a very good tip. Check for straightness one more time and leave the glue to set for about 15-30 minutes. This last winding check, I usually glue it when I can mount the rod blank upside down. Mixing the last batch of resin, of glue. Mix well, don't forget to mix well, equal parts. Rotate to make sure everything is aligned perfectly. Then let it set for, I don't know, 15 minutes. And the grip is finished. A grip on a budget. Grip is finished. From Prosecco to this, you get a very cheap grip on a fishing rod. I've made this for myself, therefore this is my rod. The cork is much higher quality than the ones you find in rod building shops. Not the quality I usually use. I use better quality than this, but this is much better quality than the regular cork grips you can find and buy for rod building. Hope you like this tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll try to do as many tutorials like this as possible for rod building. I have some more ideas. Maybe you can use them. Have a great one, tight lines, and keep on building. Andrei Sava here from Asava Custom Rods. See you next time.